Welcome to Demonic Diaries, the YouTube channel where we explore the darkest corners of the human mind. Join me, your host, as I delve into the pages of terrifying tales and haunting stories. From the depths of hell to the darkest depths of the human psyche, we'll be your guide through the most bone-chilling and spine-tingling stories that will keep you up at night. So buckle up and prepare to be scared, because on Demonic Diaries, every story has a dark side. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. Let's get started. I hadn't thought about Jared for 5-6 years, until yesterday. The only memento I have of our entire relationship is a Polaroid photo of the two of us, buried in a box in my closet, somewhere. As I put my socks away, my mind flashed to Jared, who always stuffed his socks between the bed and the nightstand. One of those cute, weird little memories you have of someone you were in a relationship with. Moments later, my phone buzzed from the nearby dresser. It was an email from Jared. Wow, that's serendipitous, I thought, before scanning the subject line. The ghost experiments. Help. Spooky. Or at least, it would be, if I didn't get loads of emails with variations on the word ghost in the subject line. Let me give you some background before I dive into the content of the email. Background: Jared and I met back in college in our school's tiny forensic investigation program. He wanted to join the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is like Canada's FBI, and I wanted to join a forensic image analysis lab. I was passionate about two things: photography and true crime. Forensic imaging seemed like the perfect fit. When we met, I was in my early 20s, Jared in his late 20s. He had been volunteering as a firefighter and EMT for a few years before going back to school. He thought a bachelor's degree would look better on his RCMP application. It took me a while to realize he had any interest in me. The quiet woman that kept to herself. Jared always said my sense of humor is what he first noticed, though I never tried to be funny. My friends suggest that my bluntness can be charming. Perhaps that was it. To make a long story short, Jared asked me out for coffee one day after class, and we ended up dating for about a year. We were both quite logical people, and suited each other well. We both enjoyed our own spaces too much to ever live together, but we were happy for a while. Things ended when Jared had to report for RCMP training in Regina, Saskatchewan, whereas I remained in BC to finish up my studies. Jared wasn't sure where he would get posted after graduation, so it was reasonable to end things. In retrospect, Jared was the kindest, most level-headed man I've ever dated, though I haven't exactly been pining for him all these years since. Relationships come and go, and I started my career shortly afterwards. 6 months after college, I got a job as a forensic imaging technician in a small private lab. I toiled away as a technician for years before getting promoted to image analyst. Analysts are the ones that perform things like image authentication and photogrammetry. They also get all the best software and coolest toys. Aside from seeing the absolute horrors of mankind on a regular basis, I enjoyed my job. The work was fulfilling, my hours weren't too bad, and my coworkers ranged from tolerable to excellent. And my findings that is above average for a workplace. 1 month after my promotion to analyst, I woke up to an email telling me that I got laid off and no longer had a job. I felt gutted. Years of hard work down the drain. I'm still bitter about it, if I'm being honest. Even worse still, there were no comparable jobs anywhere in my area. I hated the idea of leaving the Vancouver area, expensive as it may be, so I got a full-time gig as a server in a restaurant. I found a smaller apartment with my new coworker Sarah, and things were starting to look up. Despite that, depression was kicking my ass, and I was sad I wasn't doing lab work anymore. After wallowing in sadness, I did what any overeducated broke millennial would do. I started a YouTube channel. I made videos on forensic imaging techniques and spotting common photography tricks. I'm proud of my videos, but nothing exactly paid my rent or broke the algorithm. That is until one October, Sarah encouraged me to do something spooky for Halloween. I've always enjoyed ghost stories, but I'm an absolute skeptic, which I wanted to make very clear. I released a video debunking paranormal or ghost footage. Taking 5 different videos of paranormal activity, I broke down their rational explanations. There were a lot of strings pulling doors or drawers. Plenty of poor quality cameras make ghosts for various reasons. Certain cameras have low shutter speeds, or poor quality codecs that cause all manner of aberrations. Spotting computer-generated imagery, CGI, can be tricky, but there are plenty of tells if you know where to look. Sometimes, ghosts were actually dust near the camera lens, and so on. Frankly, this was my least technical, lowest effort video on the entire channel, so of course this was the video that blew up and got loads of views. Getting ad revenue and sponsorships was exciting, so I decided to make a few similar videos. I could have kept making those videos, but ghosts weren't something I was passionate about. I went back to making my regular content in November, and the well dried up quick. The whole ordeal left me feeling depressed once again. I had no lines on another lab job, my channel was dying, and I was going through the motions in my day-to-day life. Until the email. I've removed some identifying information, but otherwise will preserve as much content as possible. The email, to Marty redacted from Jared redacted. Subject line, the ghost experiments help. Hey Marty, it's Jared from our days at college name, I hope you're keeping well. I heard what happened to your lab last year, sorry to hear about that. The reason I'm writing is we've had some unusual things happening in our home. I've set up cameras and audio recorders to try to figure out what's going on, but I'm working such long hours these days. I don't have as much time to look into this as I would like. I've attached an explanation video and all the raw files in a Google Drive for you to review at your earliest convenience. If you're interested, we would pay you $2,000 to come over to our place in town on Vancouver Island for a few days. You can run whatever experiments you see fit and use the content for your channel, as long as you don't show our faces. We have a guest room and plenty of space for you to work in. Our second baby is on the way, and I'm willing to do anything to reduce our stress. We're really scared. If I don't hear from you in the next 2 weeks, I'll assume you're not interested and I won't bother you again. Warmly, Corporal Jared redacted. P.S. Apologies for the dramatic subject line, I thought it might get your attention. I have to admit my initial thoughts focused on the wrong things. Wife. Second baby on the way, clearly I hadn't creeped him enough on social media over the last few years. Bad thoughts, Marty. Put those away. I definitely didn't know what to make of the fact that they were scared. Was he pranking me? I had to admit the proposal was interesting, though. $2,000 in Vancouver was, well, 1 month's rent. But getting 1 month of rent for a few days of work and some fodder for another video was tempting. I opened up the attached Google Drive. I was surprised to see over 70 gigabytes of content in the drive. In the main folder was a video labeled edited explanation.mp4, followed by folders labeled raw footage, audio recordings, house, records and findings. If this was a prank, it was an elaborate one. To determine if any of this was even worth my time, I clicked on the explanation video first. The video, I let out a small gasp when I saw Jared's face. He was talking at the camera from the middle of a kitchen island in a modern fancy-looking house. The years had been kind to Jared, his shoulders were more broad than I remembered, and his stubble had grown in. His facial hair used to be a lot more patchy, he kept it clean-shaven back in college. The video buffered for a second, and then started playing. Hey Marty. Jared was smiling, but he sounds tired. I'm recording this because there's some unusual stuff going on in my house. Jenny's really freaked out, and I don't know. If you had asked me 2 months ago if I thought ghosts were real, I would have said no. No way. But now I'm so sleep deprived I'm not even sure anyway. I saw your ghost debunking videos, and I'm hoping you can be a voice of reason here. I need help to figure out what exactly this is. Jared cleared his throat. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. We moved into this place here in town 2 months ago. Super nice home, brand new development. The very first night, we woke up to a loud banging noise at exactly 3:24 a.m. I shot out of bed, grabbed my sidearm, and cleared each room. Nobody was inside or outside our property, and there was no sign of an intruder. No forced entry or anything like that. I grabbed Simon, that's my son, Simon, he's 11 months old now, so 9 months old at the time, from the nursery and came back to bed. We weren't sure what it was, but we went back to bed after I was certain there was no immediate threat to my family. Then it happened again the next night. The exact same time, 3:24 a.m. Bang bang bang. Jared made a knocking gesture in the air. Simon was co-sleeping with us that night. I cleared the house again, I checked the yard, I walked around the property. Nothing. Now it was a pattern, and after 2 shitty sleeps in a row, I decided to leave my phone recording all night. I'll play the clip now. The screen cut to black, only the date and the timestamp was visible. 3:24 a.m. like before, followed by a startling loud noise. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. 2 sets of 5 knocks. I jumped in my chair at the volume of the noise, cursing under my breath. You can hear baby Simon start to cry and the commotion of his parents getting startled awake. The video cuts back to Jared in the kitchen. I'll spare you more of this, but if you check the audio recordings you can find 19 individual recordings. All loud bangs, 2 sets of 5 knocks at exactly 3:24 in the morning. There would be more, but we got kind of numb to it after a while, and, well, you'll see. At this point I started wondering, why me? I'm an imaging specialist, not an audio expert. Much to my annoyance, Video Jared seemed to read my thoughts. Now I know you're more of a video expert, but if you do have any contacts in forensic audio feel free to send those along. You presumptuous bastard, I do have a friend like that. I haven't told anyone at work about what's going on, not sure how I'd even begin explaining this. After 3 days of these noises, I picked up a bunch of home security cameras that do night vision and audio. I put them all over the house, interior and exterior. Aside from the bathroom, the only room I didn't put a camera in was Jen's studio. She's a professional seamstress and didn't like the idea of a camera staring at her while she worked. She caved, and you'll notice in the recordings that footage from her studio pops up around day 24. To catch anyone creeping around, I had large motion sensor lights installed outside. Oh, and I put some small motion sensors in the hallways. The camera cuts to the kitchen, the master bedroom, nursery, 2 hallways, guest bedroom, garage, front yard, and backyard. One thing was clear to me. This house was nice. Like, how on earth does a corporal and a seamstress afford this level nice? Does Jen come from money? Jared certainly doesn't. It would take me years to save up for a place like this with my old analyst salary. After installing the cameras, I managed to capture something the very first night. The video cuts to several exterior night shots, the motion lights are off, all is still. Day 3 displays on the screen, and the timestamp is visible in the corner. In the hallway closest to the bedroom, the clock now reads 3:23 a.m. The motion light turns on, illuminating the hall, but no one is in frame. The hallway is silent. As the clock changes to 3:24 a.m., the sensor light switches off. A pause, then 2 sets of 5 knocks. My ears ring at the sheer volume of the knocks. On the footage, Jared springs out of bed and comes out into the hallway in a t-shirt and boxers, his gun drawn. The hallway motion light turns on as Jared yells for anyone to make themselves known. The video follows him as he searches through the various rooms of the house. Jen stays in the bedroom, clutching their baby to her chest. The video cuts back to Jared narrating in the kitchen. As you can see, right before the knocking sounds, something set off our motion sensors in the hallway. I scanned every scrap of surveillance footage from that day, and I can tell you, no one's entered our house. All the footage is there on the drive if you want to review it for yourself. Now I know what you're thinking. It could be a faulty motion sensor. I thought the same, so I replaced brand X motion sensor light with brand Y the very next day to be sure. The video cuts to day 4, 3:23 a.m. The new brand Y motion light is in view. Jared sits awake in an uncomfortable-looking wooden chair in the hallway, phone and gun in hand. The light in the hallway is off as another set of loud pounding noises go off as the time changes to 3:24 a.m. The noise sounds further away now, distant. Jared springs out of the chair and whirls around with his gun, trying to discern the source of the sound. The camera angle switches to hallway 2, closer to the guest bedroom. At 3:23 a.m., the new motion light turns on, and the guest door starts shaking with the knocks at 3:24 a.m. So here's the thing, kitchen narrator Jared continues, the knocking noise comes from a different spot every night. The noise happens at a consistent enough time that this could a hoax with a wireless speaker. But the fact it moves from room to room without anyone getting caught on camera is perplexing. You can confirm this with the attached raw surveillance footage. My phone's audio recordings have similar results if you check those out in the Google Drive. Some nights the knocking's loud, other times we can barely hear it. We're actually starting to sleep through it. Now his voice was weary, almost resigned to this fact. In that moment I felt bad for Jared, though I wasn't sure how I could help. I wish I could say we were only dealing with loud noises in the middle of the night, but here's where you come in. On day 14, I captured this. We cut away from Jared and are now watching Jen playing with baby Simon in the kitchen. The timestamp reads 10:35 a.m. It's the middle of the day, light is pouring in from the beautiful framed windows. The house looks serene like this, much less spooky than the previous few nights' worth of footage. Behind Jen, the utensil drawer slides open on its own. I've seen plenty of shots like this in fake paranormal videos. I leaned in, hoping to spot an obvious sign of a hoax. Usually they put one string on the drawer, and one string on a utensil, then pull on it hard. This rips the object across the room and makes a little jump scare. What happened instead took me by surprise. A silver spoon gently floats out of the drawer, twirling upwards into the air. It rotates, spinning in a few different directions, not impossible to fake with strings, but quite difficult. This could be CG, but it seems real at first glance. The levitating spoon spins higher into the air, and baby Simon starts grabbing towards it. You can hear him giggle on the tape. He's excited by the flying spoon. Jen turns her head over her shoulder to see what Simon's looking at. Exactly the moment she does that, the spoon drops back down into the drawer with a loud crash. Jen startles at the noise, and gets up to look at the utensil drawer. She seems confused. We're then brought back to Jared in the kitchen. If you check the footage, you'll see I had left for work hours before, and Jen was with Simon all morning. For a moment, video cuts to Jared walking out the door in full police gear at 4:45 a.m. The spoon's on the raw footage too, in case you think we did that with computers or whatever. I found myself annoyed at how well Jared was predicting my reactions. Was this an elaborate prank? Why would a family man want to get one over on his ex from college? It's not like we had a falling out. In fact, he ended things with me. It didn't make any sense. Before my thoughts could catch up to my feelings, the video carried on. Loud noises and floating silverware are one thing, but this next clip is the real reason we wanted your expertise. Interesting Freudian slip there, Jared. The video takes us to night vision footage of the nursery, with day 35 and the timestamp of 2:13 a.m. Little Simon stirs from his sleep and wakes up in his crib. He makes a few cooing noises as he gets up and tries to prop himself up on the sides of his crib. He lets out a little giggle, looking in the direction of the closet. Then, rising up from the ground, a shadowy figure emerges from the floor. The shape gets taller and taller until it looms over Simon's crib. It's in the rough shape of a man, has no distinguishable features, and is semi-transparent. My immediate reaction is this has to be CG, but the effect looks good. The shadowy figure's hand reaches out towards Simon and holds its arm in position. Simon laughs and makes grasping motions towards the figure's hand. The figure remains motionless for a moment, and Simon bobs up and down with excitement. The other arm reaches out towards Simon. Both hands are now inching closer to the baby, who seems thrilled with his dark visitor. Long black figures grasp Simon's sides, like how any parent would pick up their baby. The figure starts to slowly lift little Simon off the ground, his toes no longer touching the crib. Suddenly, Simon winces and lets out a sharp cry of pain. I recoil at the noise. The figure stops lifting Simon and holds him motionless, arms stretched in front. If the being had a face, I'd say it was staring at him. Simon starts squirming in the figure's hands. I fight the urge to look away from the screen. Then the door opens. Light bursts in from the hallway. The instant that happens, the shadowy figure drops into the floor, disappearing completely. Simon drops almost a foot down into the crib, stumbling. Jen rushes over to the crib and inspects Simon. She picks him up and takes him out of the room. Skeptic though I may be, it's hard to describe how unsettling that moment was. I found myself peering over my shoulder to make sure no one was behind me. Nothing but my empty apartment. Still, had to check. The video comes back to Jared in the kitchen one last time. There's something you should see. Jared's face looks strained, intense. Two pictures appear on screen. Both photos are of baby Simon, his pajama shirt pulled up. He's bruised across his chest, sides and back. Dark bruises in the shape of handprints with long, slender fingers. I don't even have words. Same, Jared. Same. Simon's staying over at Jen's sister's place for now. We rushed him to the hospital right after this. Doctor says he'll be fine. I'm hoping he doesn't call CPS on us. Jared stares off into space, and there's a pregnant pause. I catch myself impatiently moving my mouse to skip over the moment of silence, but it's not needed. Jared speaks again. If you want to analyze this footage and give me a rational explanation for this, please do please. If you go through the drive, you can see I've tried to track down every explanation I can think of. I even bought an EMF meter, no idea how this thing works, to be honest. I downloaded the original plans for the house, every permit relating to this property, the history of the land, everything. It's all there in the drive. There's nowhere in our house someone could be hiding. I've checked the attic, the crawl space, and the ventilation system. I even checked to make sure our house wasn't on sacred local indigenous tribe land. I confirmed no recorded murders have ever happened here, and we're the first people to ever live here. I've tried to summarize everything into the findings folder, but honestly, I don't have any concrete findings at all. You might laugh at this, but we're really scared, Marn. Scared for Simon. Jen wants to cleanse our house with white sage and crystals, and I'm ready to call a priest. We've sunk all our savings into this house, and the market sucks right now. We won't be able to move for a few years, at least. You know me, I'm a rational person, but this has shaken me to my core. We'll pay you for your time, and get you any equipment you need. Jared pauses, searching for anything else to say. I guess that's it. Thanks, Marn. Please get back to me once you get this. Please. The video ends. I stare at the screen, reeling. I'm not sure how long I sat there for, exactly. All I know is I jumped out of my skin when my roommate Sarah opened our front door. After she finished laughing at my expense, I told Sarah about Jared and showed the video. When she got to the clip of the shadowy figure playing with baby Simon, she gasped and covered her mouth. We remained silent by the video's end. Are you going to help him? Sarah asked. Maybe, I said. That's the best answer I had. Do you think this is a hoax? Maybe. No. I don't know. I'm going to look over the drive first. Sarah agreed that was a good idea and left me to it. The drive contained everything Jared said it did and more. There was 2 months worth of unedited security footage taking up the bulk of storage. I scrubbed through as much of it as I could, paying special attention to the days leading up to the spoon incident and the Shadow Man. At no point did I see anyone rigging up wires or sophisticated lighting rigs, and both events were on the raw footage exactly as Jared presented them. I even found other moments of lights turning on and objects moving around the house on their own. I watched those moments over and over, looking for any signs of digital or physical trickery. I didn't have all my sophisticated tools I would have back at the lab, but as far as I could tell, there was none. No evidence of file tampering. The files came directly from the security cameras. The lighting was also very consistent in both clips. Not a pixel was out of place. Aside from the spoon not obeying the laws of physics, it all looked perfect. I decided to send the clips to my friends at the forensic imaging lab for further analysis. But my current educated guess is, if this is fake, it wasn't done with computer effects. Even the Shadow Man. Maybe. I also reviewed the house documents and the history of the place. This wasn't my area of expertise, but with some Google foo I was able to determine the documents were legitimate. Jared even made a map of cell tower coverage in his area, in an attempt to track electromagnetic interference. His home had cell coverage, but not an unusual amount of towers nor traffic. I also reviewed most of the audio files recorded from his phone. The knocks were audible in all of them. I bundled up those files and sent them to my friend who specializes in forensic audio analysis. If nothing else, he should be able to give me a rough idea of what could be making the sound. Hopefully he'll get back to me sooner or later. Aftermath. It's the next day, and I'm sitting in my kitchen running on barely any sleep. Sarah's already left for work. I've typed up an email telling Jared I'll take the job, but I'm having a hard time bringing myself to hit send. I've even bought myself a ferry ticket to take me to Vancouver Island tomorrow. To shake myself out of my funk, I decided to take a shower. A hot shower was exactly what I needed. It felt like all the fear and uncertainty washed right off me and went down the drain. I decided I would take the job and confidently marched out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel to hit send on the email. Then I stopped in my tracks. Resting on my laptop's keyboard was a Polaroid photograph. The photograph that had gotten buried in a box somewhere. The photograph that wasn't there when I left to take a shower. The photograph of Jared and I from college. My head was spinning. The Polaroid photo of Jared and I was sitting on my laptop, less than a day after I received his emotional plea to investigate a haunting at his home. It was impossible. The whole thing was impossible. I don't believe in ghosts, and that photo hasn't seen the outside of a box in years. I ripped open my storage closet. Underneath many boxes in the back corner was the small pink shoebox, where I kept all the mementos from college. I tore off the lid and rooted through the contents. The box contained many Polaroids of friends, parties, everyday items I framed in an artsy way, and a lot of questionable hair fashion choices. No Jared photo. I examined the photo placed on my laptop again. It looked exactly like the others in the box. Yellowed from the years and covered in a light film of dust. I flipped it over and saw a handwritten note. Love you always, Jared. His penmanship was almost illegible, and there was a heart beside his name. Wow. As if I didn't have enough confusing feelings to process right now. Desperate to hold on to a semblance of reality, I texted Sarah asking if she moved my photos. That would make sense, right? She learned about Jared last night. Maybe she dug up my boxes from college. My phone chimed. Sarah questioned your message. Did you move any of my old college photos? For non-iOS users, that means she held down on my message and selected a question mark. Since she's at work, that's likely the best response I'll get for a few hours, but it's safe to assume Sarah didn't touch the photo. After covering my shifts at the restaurant for the week, I decided to reply to Jared. I sent him a brief email informing him that I would be taking a ferry to Vancouver Island the next day. Afterwards, I found myself writing down the entire experience. This is unlike me. I don't journal or keep a blog or anything like that. I'm not sure what compelled me, but this event felt significant. The ferry. I loaded up my crappy little car with all my equipment and left at the ass crack of dawn. Traffic wasn't too bad this early in the morning, and I made it to the terminal with time to spare. I pulled up to the ticketing booth and fumbled with my phone until I found my online reservation email. They gave me my lane number and I drove through. The booth opened up to a huge tarmac with around 20 different lanes, and I found my spot in line. I pulled in behind 10 other vehicles and turned off my engine. Non-locals won't know what I mean when I say this, but ferries is a racket. It's like $100 one way with a vehicle. As my bank account drained, I remembered why I don't visit Vancouver Island all that often. Beautiful though it may be. Maybe I can write this off as a business expense. I just need to learn taxes and business. Don't judge. I went to school to study grainy surveillance footage. On second thought, Jared can cover my ferry costs. After a long period of waiting, the ferry started loading up cars, and I parked on the lower vehicle decks. For those unfamiliar, these ferries aren't cute little boats. These are massive ships that can fit dozens of vehicles and hundreds of passengers. They're several stories tall and contain a restaurant, gift shop, play areas for children, and more. I made my way up to the upper passenger deck and got in line for breakfast. A breakfast meal with coffee cost me $20, and it left me feeling sick for hours. The racket continues. After breakfast, I waddled over to passenger seating and managed to score a window seat. As I settled in for the rest of my journey, I finalized my plans for Jared's ghost problem. The plan: there are 3 major events to investigate: the 10 knocks, the floating spoon, and the shadow man. Here are my plans for each. The 10 knocks. 10 loud knocks ripple through the home every night at exactly 3:24 a.m. According to Jared, the sound seems to come from a different location each night. As you know, Jared already has an existing surveillance system. On top of that, I'm going to set up 2 Zoom audio recorders and an old phone of mine to record audio throughout the night. From there, I'm going to attempt to make a map of the approximate knock locations and see what data we can generate. I'm hoping we can discover a pattern and isolate the source of these noises. Last time I mentioned a friend of mine who specializes in forensic audio. I'm hoping he can help me with this, but at the moment I haven't heard back from him. I'm not sure I blame him, honestly. The floating spoon. Surveillance footage shows the utensil drawer opening in the kitchen and a spoon levitating in the air. Since the spoon's movements were quite articulate, I'll be looking for any evidence of wiring rigs. I also brought a compass for detecting magnetic fields. I'll be insisting on seeing Jared's computers to see if they have software that could fake these things with CGI. I should note that there were a few other objects I caught moving in the raw surveillance footage, but those could be faked with a single string. Unlike the floating spoon, which moved in many directions. The shadow man. I'm going to get Jared to stand exactly where the figure appeared in the video and take measurements for scale. If this man-shaped figure happens to be exactly Jared's size, that'll be a strong sign the footage is fake. If they'll let me, I'm also going to inspect Simon's bruises. Finger-shaped bruises can be imitated with makeup. A sobering reality here to consider is that if Jared faked the Shadow Man footage, I may have to call Child Protective Services. Simon's noises and movement in the video indicated he was in legitimate distress. If I do determine the footage is fake, I'll be demanding a detailed explanation of the hoax from Jared. For Simon's sake. The drive, the ferry docked, and I made my way down to my vehicle. Cell reception returned as we got closer to the island, so I entered Jared's address into Google Maps. For those unfamiliar with Vancouver Island, this isn't a tiny island you can cruise around in a day. It's home to over 850,000 people and bigger than the Hawaiian Islands combined, or half the size of Ireland. It's home to a few cities, the largest of which being BC's capital city, Victoria, and many towns of various sizes. For privacy reasons, I won't be sharing exactly where Jared lives, but for context I'll say that it's a small town. I've driven through the island a few times, but this visit felt ominous. Pouring rain from the gray skies splattered my windshield. The roads were flanked on both sides by towering evergreen trees, sprawling all the way across distant mountain ranges. As I left the cities and hit a winding stretch of highway, I couldn't help feeling like I was in the opening scene of The Shining. My speakers blasted upbeat 90s classics to keep my spirits up, but the foreboding feeling was hard to shake. As I approached the town where Jared lives, I decided to stop at a cute little coffee shop advertising free Wi-Fi. Knowing you're about to see your ex is nerve-wracking enough on its own, let alone when you're going to their home, meeting their wife, and presumably fighting ghosts. I ordered a lat, and found a quiet spot in the corner. As the rain pattered against the window, I called Sarah on FaceTime. She answered, and I could tell she was walking home from the restaurant. After some small talk, I blurted out what was on my mind. Am I making a terrible mistake? Sarah stifled a laugh. I mean, how honest do you want me to be? We both laughed this time, if a bit nervously on my end. Look, either you're about to save a family and fight some ghosts, or somebody's living in their walls, or your ex is pranking you. What's your plan if things go to shit? More like when things go to shit. Let's just hope he pays me up front. Sarah knew me well enough to know I'm very safety conscious. Working for a crime lab tends to have that effect. I had already shared Jared's address with her, and called ahead to a local motel. I explained that I was staying with someone nearby, but had concerns about my safety. I would have preferred spending all my nights in a motel, but our ghost only knocks in the middle of the night. Wendy, the manager, was lovely and agreed to hold a room for the first night. No charge unless I check in. It was their off-season, and they had plenty of vacancies. I love small towns. Sarah and I decided on one final safety measure. If I feel unsafe at any time, I'll text her a code phrase. Like, how was your job interview? Furthermore, we have a daily check-in, and if I don't respond within 20 minutes, Sarah will call the authorities. Realizing Jared is an authority, Sarah wrote down the direct lines for EMT, fire and RCMP, in the hopes that someone will check on me. Our conversation came to a close. I love you, Sarah. Love you too, Martin. Stay safe. Bye. Bye. The call ended. I collected myself, pulled up the hood of my jacket, and ran out into the pouring rain to my car. I sent Jared a text letting him know I was close, and drove the rest of the way there. The house, Jared and Jenny's house, is tucked in the back corner of an upper class, surrounded by woods. I pulled up the driveway, feeling very out of place in my crappy sedan. An old woman standing outside in a neighboring front yard eyed my poor ass with suspicion. I ignored her. The house was modern, bright white with black accents, and completely unassuming. The rain had lifted, and a sliver of sunlight made the house seem positively welcoming. Despite seeing the house in videos and pictures, a part of my brain expected some sort of haunted castle, which couldn't be further from the truth. I had barely gotten out of my car when Jared and Jenny came outside to greet me. It's always a little awkward sussing out the etiquette when meeting up with your ex after several years. Do we shake hands, or hug, or exchange an explosive fist bump? I was panicking a little, but Jenny cut right through that by springing an enthusiastic hug on me. Oh my god, Jenny had that gorgeous, effortless, hippie island girl thing going on. Her shoulder-length straight hair was blonde, and she wore a long, flowing olive cardigan, and black leggings with sneakers. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. Jared was standing behind her, and gave a small wave. Hey Marn. He looked exactly like the video. We exchanged a brief hug. I'm not sure if everyone else overanalyzes every single social interaction they're in, but I was very cognizant of not letting that hug linger. A professional hug. Jenny chimed in. I love your videos. Jenny's enthusiasm seemed genuine. After all this started happening, I went deep down the YouTube rabbit hole. There's a lot of stuff out there, but your videos made me feel sane. Yeah, I came into the room and saw you on the TV. I was like, whoa, I dated her in college. Jared added. I didn't believe him at first, but he had proof. Jenny gave him a playful smack on the arm. Evidence is important. Jenny laughed at Jared's terrible cop joke. I could see why he liked her. Jenny's sunny disposition was infectious. In comparison, Jared and I were two people with very dry senses of humor. We exchanged pleasantries, and the couple helped me bring my bags into the guest room. Jared gave me something of a tour of the home. Having studied their surveillance footage in detail, I had no issue navigating their home. It was easy to forget I hadn't been here before. When we got to the kitchen, I made a mental note of the ceiling. adorned with several wooden beams, perfect for stringing up wires to say, make a spoon dance in the air. Interesting. Walking down the hallway to the master bedroom and nursery, Jared pointed out a small blind spot in the cameras. I made a note to place one of my cameras there to cover that gap. While the knocks occurred in different locations each night, the main hallway was where the most activity occurred. I decided that this would be a good spot for my thermal camera, a piece of equipment I've owned for several years, but never had a good excuse to use. According to the lore, ghosts can affect temperature. I guess we'll see. As Jared showed me the nursery, he explained that Simon would be staying at his sister-in-law's for the foreseeable future. I had hoped to take a look at his bruises, but this didn't feel like the time to mention Simon's injuries or the Shadow Man. Jenny's expression darkened, and she brought it up without my prompting. After Jared showed me, her voice quivered. She paused before collecting herself. The video, I didn't feel safe having him here anymore. We visit him every day. Jenny's eyes welled up, and she excused herself. Left alone with Jared for the first time, there was an awkward pause. Wanting to avoid awkwardness at all costs, I asked Jared if he could do me a favor. Stand where the Shadow Man stood and imitate his movements. For scale, I told him, and that was true. If Jared's measurements matched the Shadow Man, there's a good chance he faked the footage, either with CGI or some sort of lighting rig. Jared seemed surprised, but he complied. I think he understood where I was going with this. I grappled with my emotions versus my logic. On one hand, this ghost should have a rational explanation, and the most rational explanation was that this was a hoax. On the other hand, Jared's wife is crying because she doesn't feel like her child is safe in her home. If this is a prank, to what end? My relationship with Jared ended amicably. Hell, he was the one who ended it. It didn't make sense. None of it did. After playing Shadow Man charades, I inquired about Jared's security system. I wanted to see how he viewed surveillance footage. Jared darted into the bedroom and grabbed his laptop, a MacBook that was several years old. His security cameras uploaded over Wi-Fi to the cloud, and he was able to access that footage via an app. This app deletes the videos after a period of time, so Jared had been downloading them onto his computer. I noted he had several external hard drives. Video files take up a lot of space, so this made sense. I asked if I could borrow his laptop for a moment. Sure, do whatever you want. Jared handed me the laptop, which I took into the guest bedroom where I was staying. I took this opportunity to see if his computer had any visual effects or video editing apps. All he had was a movie, not a particularly powerful option. I spent a few hours reviewing the laptop and then editing some B-roll footage I had shot earlier on my own computer. Jared knocked on the door. I looked up to see him in full police gear, and he let me know he was going to work. After Jared left, Jenny poked her head in the doorway and asked if I'd like to go out for dinner tonight, just the two of us. I agreed. All I had eaten was sickening fairy food for breakfast, and Jenny seemed nice enough. The dinner, Jenny drove us to this amazing little Italian restaurant, and we had a fantastic time. She pushed many appetizers on me, so much bread, and the main course was delicious. I had linguine pescatore, and Jenny had gnocchi. Jenny had one glass, and I had the rest of the wine bottle. The dinner was a little awkward at first, but by the end of the night we felt like old friends. For Jenny's sake, I won't discuss every single thing she told me, but here are the relevant bits. I previously described Jenny as a seamstress. Well, that is true, it's underselling what she does. Jenny knows some specific technical dressmaking techniques. She has her own business, targeted towards Renaissance fairs and cosplayers. Her work eventually attracted the attention of Hollywood productions. Now she makes beautiful clothing for feature films, period pieces, and high-end clients. I wondered how she and Jared could afford their beautiful home. She appears to be the reason. Jared and Jenny met a little over 3 years ago. Jared was a few years out of the academy and got stationed in their small town. By coincidence, he had moved into her apartment building. They struck up a conversation one day when Jared offered to help her haul several bags of dresses to her car. She liked him and asked him out for coffee. They married 2 years later, and she got pregnant with Simon around that time. At one point later in the evening, we got onto the subject of ghosts. Jenny's always been a spiritual person. Her office is full of crystals, and she loves astrology. I also learned she believes she saw a ghost as a child. As she describes it, she was in bed, and a bearded old man in a white three-piece suit appeared in the room. He loomed over her with an intense stare, and they locked eyes for a long time. Jenny rolled to her side, and when she looked back he was gone. I asked if she ever saw the man again, and she answered no. I spoke to her about the phenomena of sleep paralysis, and she conceded that was possible. I'm not sure if she believed that or not. Regardless, I could see myself being good friends with Jenny. Night 1. We had such a lovely time at dinner. My reason for visiting had all but slipped my mind. It wasn't until our drive home that I realized we were heading back to, for all intents and purposes, a haunted house. A pit began to form in my stomach as we pulled into the driveway. At night, the house took on an eerie presence, and the surrounding woods had me feeling like something could leap out at me at any moment. Jenny must have been feeling the same way as we hurried into the house. Gerard still wasn't back yet, as he worked 12-hour shifts. I asked Jenny if she wanted to help me set up some of my equipment before bed, and her expression darkened. She declined. She opened up a drawer and pulled out a massive bag of earplugs, offering me some. This seems to be her solution to the nightly knocking sounds. I took some earplugs, though I forgot them on the counter. I got to work setting up my cameras and audio recording devices. I placed one of my cameras to cover the blind spot Jared showed me, and set the thermal camera in the main hallway. I was more than a little tipsy, but I managed to get the job done. After triple checking that everything was recording, I shuffled back to the guest's bedroom to sleep. It was around 10:30 p.m., and I was dead tired, but knowing why I was there, I set an alarm for 3:15 a.m., hoping to be awake for the knocks. Beep 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 beep. I shut the alarm off, and groaned. I barely registered falling asleep. It was one of those sleeps where it feels like you've blinked, and all of a sudden it's several hours later. Awful. I grabbed my phone, pulled myself out of bed, and left my room. I checked the time, 3:20 a.m. I shuffled into the main hallway, and waited. The minutes felt like an eternity as I stood around, waiting for a noise. It was dead quiet. Impatient, I found myself checking my phone, while waiting for a ghostly knocking. Something must be wrong with my brain. As my phone's clock read 3:23, I put my phone away and listened. I couldn't hear any footfalls or doors opening. No strange noises from the plumbing or AC units. As I lingered in the silence, I wondered if this would be the night when the noises stopped. Did I scare the ghost away? Bang, 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 bang. I screamed, startled by the incredible volume of noise that surrounded me. It felt like the banging was right beside my head, as if the very walls were screaming at me. Then it started again. Bang, 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 bang. I whirled around, searching for a source to this thunderous sound. No such source was obvious to me. Gerard came out of the bedroom in his pajamas and stared at me for a moment, as if to say, "Told you so," but no lecture came. If anything, he looked sad, disheartened that this horrible noise was real, not some sort of shared hallucination. He took a step towards me. "Oh my God," was all that came out of my mouth. "Let's talk in the morning," Gerard said, shivering a little before heading back to bed. It's clear he's used to this, but my heart was pounding out of my chest. After a pause, I followed suit and returned to the guest's bedroom. It took a long time to fall back asleep after that. I wished I took Jenny up on her offer of earplugs. Reviewing the evidence, I awoke around 8:30 to a gentle knock on my door and an offer I couldn't refuse. "There's fresh coffee, if you want some," Jenny announced. God, yes. As I sat down for coffee, nectar of the gods, I couldn't help but focus on the empty high chair at the kitchen table. There wasn't much conversation in the morning, but Jenny did tell me she was spending the day at her sister's with Simon. Later Jared would go there after work to spend the night with him. My heart hurts for them. As Jenny left, Jared encouraged me to check my footage from last night. He did the same with his security system. I scrubbed through my 3 audio recordings. The ear-shattering knocks were definitely coming from the main hallway. I marked down where I was standing on my sound map. I checked my blind spot camera and scrubbed through the night's events. Nothing of note until I entered the hallway at 3:20, stare at my phone and then jump into the air at the sound of the knocks. As I finished up with this, Jared came into the room. He told me there wasn't anything noteworthy on his cameras, just the knocks, but he would send me the footage to review. He was about to leave the room when I asked him if he wanted to stick around to watch the thermal camera footage with me. I opened up the video file. The thermal camera was pointing straight down the main hallway, now visible in various shades of orange and purple. The walls were brighter than the doorways, and the lights appeared brightest. I scrubbed through the hours of footage. It captured Jared going into the bedroom around 12:35 a.m., having finished work at midnight. As the timestamp hits 3:20, I come into frame, my skin orange, and my hair and clothes closer to purple. I watch myself pull out my phone, and I shoot an awkward smile at Jared, who seems unfazed. At 3:23, right before the knocking sound, a dark blue spot appears on the floor in front of me. The dark blue mass starts rising, getting taller and taller until it looms over me. The deep blue shape becomes humanoid. What the fuck? Jared interjects over my shoulder. At exactly 3:24, I jump at the knocks, and the man shape follows my movement. It doesn't have a face, but I can tell that it's staring at me. In the video, Jared comes out of the bedroom. The blue mass is still in front of him, but you can see the blue color turn closer to purple as Jared stands behind it. As Jared takes a step forward, he walks right through the mass. He shivers, affected by the temperature difference, before he walks back into the room. As I exit the hallway, the mass looks at me, its featureless head tilting in my direction. It just stands there. I scrub forward several hours. A distinct man shape, motionless. It's not until 6 a.m., when Jenny comes out of the bedroom, that the figure drops back down into the floor. The temperature readings become normal again. The video ends a few hours later, when I come to collect the camera's memory card. Jared and I stared at each other for a moment. He collected himself. So, in your professional opinion, what the hell was that? In my professional opinion. He nodded. Jared, I stated. Your house is fucking haunted. We hope you found these stories both thrilling and thought-provoking. Delving into the darkest parts of the human psyche can be a scary and unsettling experience, but it's also an important one. By exploring our deepest fears and desires, we can gain a better understanding of ourselves and the world around us. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel for more spine-tingling content. And always remember to keep the lights on.